So this interview will be made into an entire episode of the show that I host, which airs on the ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox station, depending on the market. And we just, tape a few of these per month, feature different athletic figures for episodes. So we were in like the Philippines taping one with Manny Pacquiao recently, Brett Favre, China for Yao Ming, and so on. So
Good.
it's a fun show to host.
You're traveling around doing all that, which is good for you.
Yeah, it's exciting. Get to see different places and meet people that have interesting stories.
Yeah.
We just did the head of the UFC, Lorenzo Fertitta, who's Dana White's boss. And kind of has an interesting story because they've bought it for a couple $1 million. Never thought they'd lose money. End up losing $30 million the first few years, and they're at the point where they're about ready to pull the cord. And they decided to give it.
Hey, did that Irish guy win last night?
I don't
know. I saw an article about it, but I didn't see who won.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Oh,
who
you
won.
mean in the UFC?
UFC,
in
yeah.
Boston? Yeah. I have not the slightest idea. Have you ever been to a UFC match?
No, I've been to a few heavyweight boxing matches, but never UFC.
One of the more exciting sporting events I've ever been to.
I would imagine so, yeah. More women than men go there too, I hear.
I was going to say it's at least pretty evenly split, and in between the rounds they have entertainment and there's music, and it was surprisingly entertaining. It took my dad. He thought he was going to absolutely hate it, and then was there and had a good old time.
Yeah. Well, we all have that primal instinct somewhere deep down inside, right?
Right.
Somewhere.
So what's your travel schedule like coming up?
Domestically, it's just internal Florida for the next couple of days, and then I start heading overseas in March, April, May, and then we start doing the Fox gig, May, June, July, and then just feel like I'm on the same treadmill.
Right. Joe Buck's a friend of mine, and I was going to ask you a little bit about that.
You
but
can fire away when you're ready.
What? Oh, we are? Okay. Just turning this on to keep track of time for myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was going to start off by talking to you about life today, turning 60, some of the cool stuff you've done just activity-wise, and then get into business, and then growing up, family, golf, and kind of go from there if that works.
From there, wherever it takes us, we'll go.
Okay. So in not too long, you're going to be turning 60 years old. What do you think of turning 60?
Quite honestly, I don't even really think about it, to tell you the truth. I feel fitter today than probably what I was in my mid-20s, believe it or not. And I think if you're physically fit, your mind is going to be sharp, and if your mind is sharp, therefore you're going to get plenty of rest during the night, which I do, and my days are full on. So quite honestly, there's nothing that, if anything, I'm not as a wild hair up my butt, wanting to try something extreme, really extreme, like I did when I was in my younger days. And so I've really tempered that a little bit for no other reason that I don't think I need to be doing it. But having said that, my ambition for my 60th was to dive under the Antarctic ice pack. I couldn't get it organized in the time period because only a limited number of vessels go down there to do what I wanted to do. So I guess that's a pretty big wild hair up your butt still.
Right, I was going to say, you really toned it down that much.
Well, for years and years and years, that's been one of my dreams. I mean, I'm a huge scuba diver. I'm actually, my daughter's a master diver. My son's equal to me. So we do a lot of extreme stuff, cave diving and cenote diving and wall dives and all that stuff that we really do in wreck dives all over the world. And so under the ice pack, I've never done. And a couple of buddies of mine are Navy SEALs, and they've told me a couple of their experiences about doing it and how beautiful it was and how magnificent it was, and the sounds are different. And so that would be on my number one on my bucket list.
What have they told you about what it's like?
Well, it's like gin clear water. It's a different color blue when you look up on the ice. It's a blue ice. And the sounds you can hear. Sometimes you hear the sounds of the whales, and you see a penguin every now and then. So, those are the type of things that you really see in National Geographic shows. But when you actually see them up live and personal, it's like when I dove in the cenotes of the Yucatan with a National Geographic expert. They were actually charting, the underground river system in the Yucatan. And I went in with him, and it was just the most magnificent dive I've ever done. It wasn't, if you're claustrophobic, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, you're diving through the halocline where the salt water and the fresh water mix, and you actually feel like you could take your mask and regulator out. It's just like we are here right now. It's just, you can't tell you're in water. And then you
really,
look,
you can't tell you're in water.
It's so crystal clear. It's so crystal clear. And the way you have to dive, you swim differently, you kind of glide, and you're seeing things in there that you may be I'm the second guy because I'm following my friend, right? So the second human to ever see anything. And so those are the type of things that just fascinate me to death. And if you get an opportunity to do them, I'm all over it.
How do you go about deciding what you put on that bucket list? And I know you've wanted to go down the Amazon before, climb all the mountains in Tibet, things like that.
I think the mountain climbing is not physically mountain climbing, wall climbing, mountain hiking. I'm really into that. My wife and I truly enjoy that. When we're down in Atacama a couple of years ago, we went up to about 19,000 feet and just under 19,000 feet, and we overlooked Chile one side, Bolivia the other side, and it was, you're just on an area about half the size of this, and we're on top of a mountain. We go, how cool is this? And then you start looking at other opportunities, get into the 20,000 feet, and then get up maybe base camp, and then a little bit more. So as you get more and more confident about it, you feel, the capabilities just get a little bit higher. They don't expect me to do, scaling Mount Everest or anything like that, but things like that I really, really enjoy doing because my fitness level allows me to do it, and my wife is extremely fit too, so that, to be able to share that and do that together is very, very unique.
You've said you don't miss playing golf at all anymore.
No, I really don't. What I don't miss is practicing.
Okay.
I do miss playing.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I miss it when I have to start watching TV and watching golf and watching the guys play. But then I sit back and go, well, if you really want to go play, you're going to have to go practice for the next 4 weeks and get your game in shape and blah, blah, blah. And I go, and we're not going to do that.
What do you miss about it?
Just getting out there and do what I know what I can do extremely well, or did. I don't do it extremely well now, but still, every now and then you'll hit that beautiful shot and you get that instant feedback and you go, that's how you hit a golf ball. And then spending time with my son on the golf course and, my son-in-law as well. Those are the type of things that, I go out there more for fun, and if I shoot 80, I don't care. And they don't care, instead of having to go out there and try and shoot 65 every time you play. So it's a bit more of a relaxing attitude and approach.
How often do you play?
2014, I played 6.5 rounds of golf.
Wow.
There you go. Not much.
Did you want to play more?
Not in 2014.
Okay.
2014 was a bit of a strange year, a bit of an anomaly year. Things were starting to gear up. Had to reposition myself, business-wise.
Okay.
Had to commit to a lot of things. I also had committed myself to going out to my ranch, take my family out there the 1st of June and leave the middle of August. I had done that the year before. I'd never done it. I've had this property for over 15 years out there, and my summer's always been golf orientated. And so it was the first time I actually went out there and experienced a full summer in Colorado, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Massive hikes and trail rides and going up in the wilderness country and camping out for 3-4 days. So I really started to learn what my backyard in the wilderness country was really offering me, and I got to love my ranch even more. So we did it again last year, and in doing it last year, we invited more people out because we were enjoying it. So now it becomes a little bit more of a chore because you have people you have to entertain. So I'm looking forward to going back this year, but it's going to be curtailed because I have all the Fox deal to do, the US Open, the Women's Open, the Seniors Open, the Amateur Championship. So we have a pretty heavy schedule for Fox, for the USGA.
I was talking to your team before the interview and was telling them just how impressive I think the property you have is out there in Colorado. How many acres do you have?
Just under 13,000 acres. Lucky enough to have about 2.5 miles of the White River flowing through it, and magnificent, fly fishing. I spent basically 3 summers many years ago redoing the river, not the entire river, probably just over 50% of the river, bringing it back to its most natural state. We got rid of a lot of the sedimentation buildup. It used to be a sheep farm before I bought it, and the sheep came down and just basically eroded the river banks and silted it up, where instead of being 3 or 4 or 5 feet deep in places, it was like 18 inches. So you have
and that was a big process too. You had to go get approval to do it.
You have to get approval to do it. It's a major process. You had to have accredited individuals doing it. They're monitoring you all the time, and rightfully so too, because the White River is basically the headwaters of the Colorado. So you have the North Fork, South Fork coming out of the mountain springs and rivers, coming into the White River that goes into the Colorado River. So we're responsible. I mean, my water rights are grandfathered in, so I'm got to be responsible for everybody downstream of me. So at the end of the day, it was a fantastic project for me because I learned so much about it. And even now, this summer or coming into this spring, we have a big maintenance project because I have 7 big lakes on the property as well, and they're all spring fed. So I have to make sure those lakes and the beavers don't ruin the dams and upset any other flow of water downstream. So it's an interesting, because I've had this property for so long, I really haven't been aware of the magnitude and the beauty of it.
Really?
No, not really, because I just would fly in and fly out, and you'd have everybody else. For example, I run my own bulldozers. I run my own road maintainer. We have 91 miles of road on there. And
What is it called, motor grader?
Yeah, it's a motor grader. Like it's a maintainer, we call it, where you grade the roads before you put on asphalt or something like that. So I run that piece of equipment, and I love it. I mean, I could be out there for 10 days straight, just going along at 2 miles an hour, just grading the roads and getting them ready for the summer and people getting around. And my dozer, I'll clear a path if I need to clear a path and make a little mini ski run for Kiki's girls, and I love doing that.
What else do you like doing on the property?
I'm very big into long-range shooting. I have a 1,400-yard range out there. I like to test my skills on that type of a deal. I have a couple of sniper rifles that are magnificent to shoot out that far. And then I have a really short pistol range course. I have a sporting clays range course that all my guests love to do. So I have a lot to do, or I can just do absolutely nothing. It's really up to me and the choice that I want, and most of the time I'm active.
How big are you into offshore fishing?
I was big time into it. I would go down to Australia about every other year and fish for black marlin. Done a lot of blue marlin fishing, so I've been a pelagic guy. I got into fly fishing for the pelagics, the big fish. Fortunate enough to caught about 390-pound black marlin on a fly, which was maybe my favorite fish you ever caught. But
why?
Because it's really the skill between the captain and the angler. It's how we hook up the fish and where we position the line and the hook, and how the captain keeps the belly of the line as the drag, because you really can't put a lot of load on the fish, and you could be in 2, 3, 4 meter seas catching this fish. And so it's really the art of the angler knowing what the captain's doing with the boat and how you position your rod and how you position yourself, and it can be up to a couple of hours doing that. So my second favorite fish I ever caught was I was diving with great white sharks, and they wanted me to catch one. We were going to tag and release it. We weren't going to kill the fish. And we got into this massive fight, And I was on 50-pound stand-up tackle on the fish they estimated was over 2,000 pounds. It was a massive, massive great white. And that was like 4.5 hours stand-up fighting this massive beast that pulled the boat, I think something like 9.5 miles, something like that.
And so what's your involvement in that when it's going on?
Hang on.
Okay.
And it was just hang on to the situation, and you get into this, like any athlete, once you get into a certain place, you get in this Zen place. And at the end of the day, the fish swam away. I was very happy. The fish really tested me out. And when it was all over and done with, I fell on the floor and I was just done, exhausted. I actually had to play a skins game 2 days later. I couldn't move my arms.
Oh,
my
you
legs,
couldn't?
everything was just shot. It was done. So, it was a great test for me mentally as well as physically. And so that would be my second greatest catch. And both fish survived too, which is great.
I know you've had yachts, boats, jets, fancy cars. What are some of the big boy toys you have now?
Believe it or not, a lot of that stuff doesn't interest me anymore. I mean, I sold all my Ferraris. I had a nice collection of Ferraris, sold those many years ago because quite honestly, they're just sitting there and you never drive them. And you're always maintaining them, but you never drive them. There was two cars there, that 375, that I took delivery of it, put it on blocks, and sold it on blocks. I never even put the key in ignition.
You didn't?
No. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, it's like a piece of art. It's going to go up in value, but you really have to appreciate it. But it's stuck in a garage. They're all stuck in a garage, air-conditioned garage. And so anyway, I got out of that. And I just, I'm a little bit more simplified in my life. If people can, I don't mean that in the wrong way, but I am a lot more subdued in the things I like to do and keep around materialistic things.
I want to run through some random moments and get you to recall the stories because, very clearly it seems like you've had fun and are up for whatever. The first one being when you're being chased by the Florida Highway Patrol for 20 miles down the highway going 120 miles per hour in your Ferrari.
With my buddy Nigel Mansell. He was a Formula One world champion. Yeah, that was one of the crazy things. All you children out there, don't even think about doing that. That's no-no. But anyway, we were going down to pick up my car that had just arrived, and it was a Testarossa. And I drove it back, and Nigel drove another car of mine, and he started showing off his Formula One skills, I guess, and all of a sudden we were doing this ridiculous speed on 95, and it took the police a long time to catch up to us, pull us over.
And you could see the police trailing you, and
well,
you guys just kept going.
Well, not at the end, not in the beginning. It was only at the end because you're concentrating so much on what you're doing, right? You didn't want to make a mistake, and so you're oblivious to anything else going on. So by the time he caught up and got us, he came to me and we had a little chat, and he was going to give me a ticket, and I said, hey, if you're going to give me a ticket, you got to go out there and give that guy a ticket too, because I was racing him. Nice guy, hard dog my friend in. So anyway, we were lucky.
You didn't get a ticket?
No, we didn't get a ticket. We were very lucky. We got a warning, a wrap across the knuckles. He had a look at the car, and I was very impressed with the car. It was one of the first few that come into the country, and that was it.
You're on an F-14, and the flaps won't go down.
Yeah, correct. I was doing a couple of traps. I was invited to go out to the USS Carl Vinson to do a couple of traps on an aircraft carrier, which I'd never experienced before, because I was a bit of a flyboy. I always have been. I love to fly helicopters. And when I was growing up as a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to befriend, a couple of really good flyboys from the Blue Angels. And they organized for me to go out there and do some traps off of, like I said, the USS Carl Vinson. Well, we'd done a couple, and next minute, we're up there and the flaps won't go down. So we have to do a couple of trips around the aircraft carrier. Don't worry, boys, that was me in my back pocket. So that's my everybody. That's my phone. Whenever you're doing an interview, always turn your phone off. But anyway, the flaps wouldn't go down, so we had to do this kind of trip back to Miramar, which is quite a distance back to the mainland. But the lead up to doing all that, everything was fine. We landed. But the lead up to that, we had a lot of fun with the Admiral. He had his own F-16. We were in a 14. He was off. We had to chase him and try and shoot him down. So we did a little fun air-to-air combat as much as we could, and that was fantastic.
You're 88 feet under the water scuba diving, and all of a sudden you're out of air.
Man, you got all the good stories, right? Yes, I was scuba. I just speared a group of maybe 10 or 15 minutes earlier. And to get it out of the hole, I actually went into this hole in the coral rock, and unbeknownst to me, my regulator hose got nicked right on the where it joins into the regulator, and I was leaking air. Anyway, I came out, I got the fish, boom, 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 and 10 or 15 minutes later, I could, if you ever try to put your hand over your mouth and breathe in, that's exactly it. You feel it first, and then there's nothing. So it's really a panicky feeling, to tell you the truth, because the first thing I did was I checked my gauge. I saw where my buddy was. My buddy was probably 30 feet from me, which I assessed 88 feet, 30 feet. I knew with what air I had in my lungs, it would expand as I went up. So I decided to go for the surface and not for my buddy.
Which is very dangerous to ascend that quickly.
It is. You have to be very controlled of where you are, because I knew I didn't have much air left in my lungs. So what I did was I put my hand on my regulator, on my BC, and tried to have it inflate as much as it could going up. And the last 10 or 15 feet before the surface broke, I was done. And I got the bends a little bit. There's no question about it, because I came up a little bit too quick in the last 45 feet.
What's that pain like when you're out of the water?
Well, when I got out, I completely lay on my boat, and I could feel my joints, my wrists, my elbows, my neck, everything like that. And I said to my captain at the time, I said, I think I've got the bends. And I didn't dive for quite a long time, actually, maybe a year plus. And Did
you think that was it?
No, I didn't think that was it, because I knew once I got to the surface, the boat was right there.
Okay.
So once I got there, I was going to be fine.
Okay.
It was just a matter of whether I blacked out getting there, and they would recognize it from the boat. So,
okay.
But that was an interesting experience.
So in preparing for this interview, I read numerous times where you were quoted saying you really never had any interest in getting involved in television broadcasting. And then, Fox obviously recently gets the rights to golf, and you recently joined their newly formed, lead golf broadcast team with Joe Buck. Why decide to do so?
First of all, my dear friend David Hill used to run Fox Sports. And back in '93, David Hill was the guy I went to when I had started to form the World Tour. And I wanted some network to broadcast it, so I went to David. Because ABC, NBC, and CBS, and back in those days had an affiliation with the PGA Tour, and Fox were on the cutting edge of getting into the sport. And I knew it was going to be a perfect platform for them.
And they stepped up. I think it was like $100 million deal.
It was more than the PGA Tour network right deal. And so anyway, that was my connection with David, and the rest fell down, and it never really eventuated. So you just hang around and hang around and hang around. And quite honestly, I had heard that Fox was speaking to the USG. I had heard Fox was sticking their toe in the water, but to what magnitude, I had no idea. So when David Hill called me, that as soon as the deal was done, which was done at midnight or sometime like that, the next morning he called me and he said, I want you to be my lead analyst. Are you interested? I said, of course. And because I knew at that time too, it wasn't going to be a full season of tournaments. I had a choice of not doing, I think it's 9 or 11. I had a choice of doing 4 or 5. So it was very easy for me to keep my schedule the way I like to keep it, and keep my business going the way I want to do it, and still manage time to dedicate to sitting beside Joe. And that's going to be a phenomenal experience, to tell you the truth. And Joe and I have already spoken about this at length, and it's so different for Joe when he covers football. It's there in front of you, you're calling real time, that's what it is, and it's, it's constant stream. Golf is a little bit different. We're doing 10 hours a day for 4 days a week at the US Open. 10 hours sitting next to Joe Buck. You kidding me? I'm going to buy him a box of deodorant.
I mean, 10 hours for you just sitting in general is...
Well, it is. So it's going to be, so the whole approach to it is different. But the one thing I do love about it in totality is Fox's approach to it, the resources they're putting to it, and what they want to, or how they want to show the game of golf it's going to be phenomenal. I mean, I can't give up our state secrets about what we've already got in the pipeline for it, but it's different. They want to take golf out of the box, but they still want to showcase what golf is all about. But they also want to showcase the players a little bit differently too. And technology nowadays allows you to do that. We're very, very lucky to be going to Chambers Bay. It's the first time on the US Open has been on a links golf course. Pinehurst #2, close to it, but a true links golf course. So everybody's interested about seeing it. There was a poll taken just recently, about 62% of people are more excited about watching the US Open this year than any other major because it's at Chambers Bay. So here we are, we have this platform of Chambers Bay, we have the platform of the USGA, we have the platform as the US Open, and we have got a great team around us. And believe me, Joe is a consummate professional. He gets it. He knows exactly how to inject, step in, step out, let the experts take the lead on it, but he also knows how to open and close brilliantly. So it's a learning process by all of us, but at the end of the day, our trial run at the Franklin Templeton Shootout, we all came out with our thumbs up, not down, which was a very, very positive thing.
You travel more than 300,000 miles a year, which is the equivalent of, I think, circumnavigating the globe like 12 times annually. The large majority of that, I believe, is for your business. You obviously were an incredibly successful golfer, but have even had more success in business. Your companies generate, I think, something like $300 million in revenue annually. Tell about, though, when you were in Turks and Caicos, and you're on your boat, and headed towards Cuba, or in the general direction of Cuba, and what happens?
Right, I was having a bit of a corporate retreat down there, and I had some pretty interesting guests on my boat. And there was one atoll I've always wanted to either go dive or fish. It was, if anybody knows where Turks and Caicos is relative to Florida, relative to Cuba, it was almost in a triangle, the bottom part of the triangle going towards Cuba. And it was maybe about a 90-mile to 100-mile run from Turks and Caicos. And anyway, I wanted to go there, and the night before, a few of the guys wanted to join me, but it was a 4 a.m. push-off, because we wanted to get there at daybreak and do some fishing and maybe dive on the atoll, which was completely infested with sharks. But so anyway, we take off, and my sport fishing boat's a pretty quick boat. It does about 33 knots, and when you're doing 33 knots heading towards Cuba, radars pick things up a little bit, and there's a big red blob put right on top of you. And unbeknownst to me, I'm running the boat, because I love to run the boat, and I look at my radar, because it's dark, and I can see around about 4 o'clock, I can see this boat catch me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're going, I look down, and I see 33 knots, and we're burning about 49 gallons per hour per engine, so I know this guy back here is going to be really singing pretty hard. So I'm watching it. Next minute, the radio crackles on channel 16, and it says, such and such vessel heading southwest at 33 knots. Please identify yourself. So I identify myself. Hey, this is the vessel Aussie Rules. Now, what it's called No Rules at that time, not Aussie Rules. This is vessel Aussie Rules, and it's owned by Greg Norman. And they said, "Who's captaining the vessel?" I said, "I am. My name is Greg Norman." And they said, "Can you pull back a little bit? We're coming up alongside." And they started, and the voice came back and it says, "Is this the Greg Norman?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Is this the Greg Norman, the wine guy?" I went, "Yes, I made it. My life has changed for the better." So that was the story. No harm foul, no foul given, no foul intended. And So we continued on with our trip, and that was it.
It already showed how far you'd come business-wise. You were repped by the famous sports management firm, IMG, which has represented everybody from Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer to Peyton Manning to Roger Federer, you name it. Tell about the plan you created in 1993, and then why on the business end, and why you really accelerated that.
Pure and simple, when you're an athlete growing up and you get to a certain level, and there's very few athletes get to experience this, because I would say the top 10 maybe in the world get to experience it, where you actually get a significant uptick in your endorsement. And during that time where I was getting a significant uptick in my endorsements when I was under a management firm, I was starting to realize that I was putting a lot of value and equity in other people's brand for a reason. They were paying me, I was wearing their logo, blah, 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 and they were getting great exposure because I was playing pretty darn good golf and I was on TV X number of seconds per day or minutes per day. So they spent all this money on you to get this exposure because you're on the golf course, but I really didn't get anything out of it except dollars. Like, great, that's what you want. I didn't want that. I wanted to build equity in my own brand. So how do you build equity in a brand when you don't even have a brand? Then lo and behold Reebok comes along and they want to start Greg Norman Collection Clothing. We formulate the shark logo. One thing leads to another. Paul Fireman, who owned Reebok at the time, he says, that is your property. You own that logo. I'm going to license that off you, and you're going to go and build that into your future. This is your equity, and you're going to put value in your own equity. So that's how it all started. So when my contract with my management company was coming up, 1992, 93, I decided not to renew. And at that moment, I had to step out. I had to capitalize everything myself. I had to start my own office. I had to start payroll. I had to find people. I had to do this. I had to do that. You had to do 401ks. You had to do healthcare. You had, all of a sudden, your head starts spinning because, whoa. And now you better be a believer in yourself. Because once you open that door, that cash is going out. You better establish yourself pretty darn quickly to get some cash coming in. So I did, and I stayed the course. I committed to a basic business model that I wanted, and that was to be vertically integrated with the game of golf. Everything I did in the beginning was completely attached to the game, so it was easy for me to bolt on and build and build and build. But at the same time, I wanted my base to get wider. And once I built a fantastic foundation underneath me, then I could kind of move off in a different direction. And look, everybody asks me, is it easy to do? And heck no, it's not easy to do. A lot of players, want to go out there and replicate it. It's not easy. It truly not. You have to, be supremely committed to the course you take. You have to be supremely committed to the human resources you get in. And human resources are the hardest part about business, I can tell you that. And then you have to look into the future. You have to be there for the long haul. In golf, when you go out there and tee it up on Thursday, the end result is going to be 4 days later.
Right.
Okay? 4 days is easy to focus your mind around and work on it. When you go in there and you look at opportunities in business and you want to understand what the exit strategy is, that exit strategy might not be until 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, or it may go on in perpetuity. You just don't know it. So there's this plethora of new information flooding your way about your opportunities, what you can or can do, or how you want to position yourself. So all of a sudden you have to be very compartmentalized in your thoughts, and you got to make sure each compartment is purely, well, this is the way I do it anyway, I should say, that each one of my compartments that I have to focus on, I focus on 100% for that 15 minutes. Or if I don't do it, I'm not giving my people the right respect, and I'm not going to be able to give the right answer on a yes or no, shall we do this? But at the end of the day, quite honestly, I'm not the be all and end all. I mean, I have great people around me, and my great people have been with, some of them been with me for over 20 years. So they know my DNA, they know my nature. I give them a little bit of rein to let them run off and run something to ground for themselves, and then bring it to me when it's 85 yards down the field. I don't want to get involved with the minutiae of stuff, even though it's difficult for me to let it go. Just bring it to me, give me a summation of what has taken place to get to where we are, and then let me make the decision whether we're going to go forward on it.
Tell about your 30-30-30-10 strategy.
Well, I learned that when I was a kid as an assistant pro at Royal Queensland Golf Club, when I was making $27 a week was my first salary. And then I moved up to a whopping $32 a week. So that's not a whole lot of money to play with. Mm-hmm. So I decided to do that strategy then. And I've always had a little bit of money, and a little bit of money when you break it down. And I kept that going forward my whole life. Even when I won my first golf tournament, the West Lakes Classic, I won $7,000. I thought I was the richest guy in the world. And I took that philosophy and I broke it down. And you had to pay taxes, and you had my expenses, you know, and my cost of living. And then I had, at the end of it, that 10%, $700 was my little slush fund that I could go out there and say, congratulations, Greg, you just won your first golf tournament. I didn't, but I had that opportunity to go do it. So I kept that. Even to this day, I've taught my kids to do that.
One of your first big deals was investing $2 million in golf club manufacturer Cobra. Mm-hmm. How did the deal come about, and how well did it end up working out for you?
Well, it worked out fantastic, but before we get to the fantastic side, I had befriended a gentleman from Australia called Tom Crow. Tom Crow was kind of like the patriarch of our golf from our country. He was just passionate about the game and passionate about designing golf clubs. And he had designed a golf club called the Baffler. And it was a small-headed wooden golf club with very heavy rails underneath. And it allowed us to get the ball out of the rough very easily. In those days, it was brilliant design. So that Baffler, he parlayed it into a company called Cobra. And one of my first set of golf clubs growing up, Tom Crow sent me a set of Cobra irons. And I won a couple of golf tournaments with them. So, and then I go off and sign with Wilson and go on and move on to other things. So I think it was like the 86, 87, Tom came to me and asked me if I would like to invest into his company. And his company at that time was doing about $43 million a year gross revenue. But they didn't have enough capital to invest into research and development. So they came and they offered me a piece of the company for the, not the exact amount of money you said, but it was very close to it. And I was also going to be representing Cobra. So I was going to get an endorsement fee on top of it. So in a period of 3 years, I was going to get my investment back if everything else failed. So to me, it was, a bit of a no-brainer decision, quite honestly. And part of the stipulation was I wanted the money to, as I said, go into research and development. Now, at that time, there was a unique opportunity because Callaway just came out with the Big Bertha driver, the oversized driver. But they weren't following it up with the oversized irons. So we looked at this opportunity. If we can come up with a great oversized iron, let's go to market with it straight away. We did. And we came up with the King Cobra oversized irons, not just for the general public, but for the seniors and the ladies. And it was a massive hit. So good luck, good judgment, right money at the right time, combination of everything. It just took the company to another level. All of a sudden, we had this huge momentum going our way, and I was playing well, and I was #1 player in the world, and all of a sudden, Cobra was like the name. King Cobra was the name. It was out there, and then we were eventually acquired by another company for, I think, $750+ million. So we all did pretty good out of it.
How much did the couple $1 million translate to? Wasn't it like some 40 million or some and then you used that to then invest into the business that you were in the process of building for
building up.
yourself?
I reinvested the money.
Right.
And it may, obviously takes a lot of pressure off too.
Right.
But at the same time, in those days, it was a massive deal. I mean, it was a massive deal to see a company that Tom Crow had started with one golf club turn up, just $750 million in a period of maybe less than 10 years. So it was an eye-opener for all the other manufacturers, which was fantastic because at the end of the day, the consumer are the benefactors, right? So all of a sudden, now you see technology at that moment just go through the roof. And then in 1996, the technology went through the roof through the golf ball. The specification of the golf ball changed, and that blossomed out again. More yardage was picked up. So now all of a sudden, the combination between hard goods and the golf ball, the masses out there were starting to see the technology benefits that were coming their way, coming out in their scores and their play.
I want to take you back to when you were growing up. You grew up in Australia. You played just about every other sport, it seemed like, growing up, except golf. And then you're 16 years old. For the first time, you decide to caddy for your mom. And what was it about caddying for her that all of a sudden got you so interested in the game?
Well, the fact that my father had changed jobs. He had gone from a town up in the northeastern part of Queensland called Townsville and moved down to Brisbane, which is like 600 miles away. So I left all my mates behind at the age of 15, 16, all the guys you hung out with when you're knee-high to a grasshopper. So I was down in Brisbane, had nothing to do, and I was actually kind of bored. And my mum was playing a competition one day, and I said, I'll come out and caddy for you. And now my mum's like 5'3", 100-pound ringing wet, right? And she was a 3 handicap at the time. She was a very, very good player. And so I pulled her golf carts around, and when she had finished, we were at Virginia Golf Club, and the last 4 holes are like straight out, and back. So it was going to be easy. She was having a cup of tea with her playing partners, and it was easy for me to take her golf clubs and see if I could emulate her. And the bug bit me. And my first handicap was 27. My first official score was 108, and I got down from 27 handicap to scratch in 18 months. And then 3.5 years later, I won my first professional golf tournament. So everything happened very, very fast.
How much did you start practicing after that initial time caddying?
Oh, all the time. Before school, after school. I used to have a code with Mum that I'd call to come pick me up. 3 rings on the phone, I'd hang up. It's time for you to come get me and take me to school, or come get me when it's pitch black and I can't see a golf ball when I'm hitting it anymore. She'd come pick me and we'd have dinner. So I was really passionate about it. Really, I was committed to it, and because the acceleration of my improvement being what it was, I was so excited because all of a sudden I'm shooting even par. All of a sudden now I'm shooting sub-70s. All of a sudden now I'm shooting in the 60s on a regular basis. So you go, whoa, yeah, this is cool. And then I had to go through a strange process about become a professional, because in Australia you just couldn't turn pro. You had to become an assistant pro, and you have to do a 3-year course, which I didn't want to be a club professional. I wanted to be a professional golfer, touring pro. So I just convinced the powers to be and asked them if I could do the 3-year trainee professional course in 2 years. And I did. I passed it. And in 1976, I got an invitation to play a couple of golf tournaments. The first one I finished 3rd, I believe, and then the Queensland Open, I finished 4th or 3rd, and then I won my 3rd ever event, and that was a West Lakes Classic, and I was gone.
I don't know if this is true, but I read it somewhere that you told your friends shortly after you were out of high school that by the time you were 30, you were going to be the best golfer in the world, a millionaire, and be married to an American.
Yeah, that's true. I did say that. We were in the back of a bus. We had this inter-club competition between Virginia Golf Club and Grafton, I believe it was. And it was a long bus ride, a 7 or 8 hour bus ride. And we always played euchre in the back of the bus. And you always had a few beers back in those days. And that's what I did say to him, yeah.
It had been a dream of yours, as you mentioned, to join the Royal Australian Air Force, and you're in their office with your dad getting ready to sign papers, committing, and all of a sudden you have a change in heart. Why?
I don't know why. I think deep down inside something told me don't do it. Deep down inside something was saying to me, you know, I was in love with the game of golf, challenge yourself and try and see if you can figure out what it is. I don't know what it was. All I know is I got up and I walked away from a career. My father wasn't impressed because he didn't know whether I'd be any good at the game of golf. Nobody did. Nobody did. And so I knew I was walking away from a career that was there sitting in front of me. But, you know, trust your internal instincts sometimes. They're right.
You spend a year after high school surfing, and you come back from that and tell your parents you want to become a professional golfer. What's their reaction at the time?
Well, you know, I would say if I put myself in their shoes today, being a parent, if my child came to me saying he or she wanted to do something that they have never experienced before, not only never experienced before, but never knowing that you're going to be any good at it, I'd be sitting there with a bit of a dumb look on my face too. But I was adamant, you know, I've always been that nature, you know, I'm a pretty driven guy, and they just had to accept it. They could see my commitment to it was second to none. I was into it more than anybody else at that time, quite honestly. Even when I was out on the tour, I practiced more than anybody else. Because I figured that if somebody was practicing for 8 hours and I practiced for 10, I'm going to be that much better than that person.
Was it tough to go against your parents then?
Look, it created a rift with my dad and myself. There's no question about it. My dad was a professional. He owned his own business, and he was hoping I would go into the business, you know, and follow in his footsteps, which every father would want. Just like my kids, I want them, they work for me now, and I would love them to be running my business when I'm pushing up daisies, you know.
Sure.
I think that'd be a fantastic, you know, feather in your cap. And so at the end of the day, we kind of separate a little bit, I think, because it just created a little bit of tension in there. So when I started to win, won early, okay, great. Now back it up. And then now I started winning on a regular basis consistently. You know, I think the little bit of damage was done then, but now it's totally different. You know, I've had my dad sit on a board of a company I owned in Australia. He's a very intelligent guy, and he taught me a lot about business as well, you know, in the latter part, in the last 15, 20 years. So I've learned a lot from him. And now it's great because, you know, I explained to him what's going on in my life and business, and, you know, and quite honestly, he invests in a couple of companies I've been involved with. So he's happy. He's getting a good dividend return.
And you've been open, I mean, about this growing up. He was tough on you. How long did it take for him to tell you that he was proud of you?
Look, my father, I think I truly believe every generation's different on how they express themselves, and how you express yourselves is directly affected by how your parents or those parents have expressed themselves onto you. And my father's parents were tough, you know, my grandparents, and they weren't affectionate and they weren't close. That doesn't mean to say that was the reason why Dad was, you know, had those barriers up all the time, but maybe it was. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. The environment he grew up in as a child was different than the environment that my children grew up in as children, because I truly believe that I wanted to make sure that, you know, you address the situation for what it is, and you want to make sure your children are embraced. You've got to be a parent, number one, and a friend, number two. Fine line you got to walk. Sometimes being a tough parent is the hardest thing you can be, and being your best friend is really easy, because if you have a great relationship with your kids, It's very easy to shower them with everything you can shower them with, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure that they have their solid foundation underneath them and that they can structure something for themselves for their future without having this parachute, sitting there ready to protect them if they fall. And my father, in his strange ways of going about it, was really a great driver for me at the end of the day, because it drove me onto the fear of failure. Because if I failed, not only do I let myself down, but I let my family down. So the fear of failure was a massive driving influence behind me, because I wanted to prove me right and everybody else wrong, because there were a lot of doubters out there thinking that I wouldn't be able to do it. And actually I did a commercial for a Swan Brewery way back, and the caption for the commercial was, "They said you'd never make it." And still one of my favorite commercials I ever shot, actually. And at the end of the day, that fear of failure was probably the tip of the spear that drove me the hardest.
What do you think's responsible for your success?
Look, I'm a huge believer in myself. There's nothing that I don't think I can't do. If I have questions, I'll go ask. I am so humble enough to ask somebody who's way more intelligent than me, "What do you think? Give me your assessment." And I've been extremely lucky like that, and I've surrounded myself with some wonderful, wonderful people. I mean, I've been very lucky where I can pick up the phone and call the President of the United States or an ex-president and say, "How you feeling?" Or some of the great CEOs of the world. I've been very lucky like that, but it's mainly because I've been open too. I'm not, like I said to you minutes ago, I'm not the be-all and the end-all. And quite honestly, now I find myself in this position where you have so much information, you have so much experience, it's so good to give back. So when I was a kid coming up and going through my life, and I needed help and advice, I'd pick up the phone. And these people in the position where I am today, where they've got all the experience and knowledge and can hand it down, are so willing to do it. It's an amazing thing to see. And if you have the ability to embrace it, and to any young kid out there in any sport, or in any aspect of life, if you have the access and the ability to reach out to somebody who's got 35, 40 years of experience above you, God, you better do it. Because it'll help you untap so many unknowns within yourself. And I enjoy doing that now. I don't do it a lot, but I'm enjoying working with a couple of guys right now that I really, really enjoy seeing their success just get a little bit better. Maybe just because of one thing I said. And that to me is as rewarding as winning any golf tournament.
Your son has said before that when you were playing golf, you could be gone traveling for 4 weeks straight. You'd come home, immediately spend 8 hours practicing, get back to the house, then putt till the sun goes down. How difficult was it to be away from the family like that?
Well, it's a huge sacrifice. I mean, one of the greatest, I mean, everybody sees all the great things that happen, but here, okay, on this side, the bad things that happen, I mean, I travel 35 to 40 weeks a year, every weekend. So that's 35 to 40 weekends. You're gone from home. So you're gone from seeing your kids playing soccer or football or doing what they love to do. You're gone from their most important growth cycle in life. So you try and immerse yourself into it as much as you can. So when you're home on a Sunday night, you got Monday, Tuesday, and then you're gone again. You try and get in there as hard as you can, but it's very difficult. It's huge sacrifices. And, a lot of people, in my life, I've paid the ultimate sacrifice, quite honestly. And
why do you say that?
Well, because, your family's not together, because of the the level of my schedule and the level of commitment and the level of dedication I had to the sport, that was number one. And if you put something number one ahead of everything else, something's going to happen, right? And so nowadays, my kids, we talk about it openly. And it's good to have that conversation, because at the end of the day, if you are going to choose a career, and that career is going to take you away from your home life, then you have to somehow, if I had to do all over again, I would redo my schedule big time.
You would?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think it's possible to have great success professionally and have a great personal life?
The answer to that is yes. I do believe that. But I was a global traveler. If you're talking about domestic USA, okay, yes, 100%. If you're talking about a global travel system where you're 1 week over here and next week in China and next week maybe in Japan and another week somewhere else, it's a massive drain because you are constantly on the move. So if your choice is your backyard is the world, it's gonna make a big difference on how you approach things. So, but at the end of the day, if I didn't do that, what I did then, my business wouldn't be where it is today. So, for all the things I did for the game of golf, making it priority number one, establishing a certain credibility and benchmark without cheapening my logo and my positioning, here I am over here, that I have this business where my son-in-law and my daughter work for me and my son works for me, and all of a sudden now you've given them an opportunity of doing something that if I did it differently over here, they might be off somewhere else. So there's so many different twists and turns to it. But if you're aware of them, and if you could sit down, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with the last 10 number ones in the world in golf. Just have a bit of a summit, just this rare chat, just like you have a CEO summit of the top 100 CEOs in America. Or even in tennis, the best players get together to discuss how tennis is going to go forward. In golf, I would love to sit down with the last top 10 number one players in the world and say, okay guys, what did you do differently? Did you do this, this, and this? Or what would you do to recommend to a Rory McIlroy, or to an Adam Scott, or to, or any future young kid coming out with imagine that knowledge for the game of golf, and forget all the egos and all that. Do it for the betterment, for the future of the game. That would be a really cool summit to be sitting in.
Your first major victory, as you're walking up to the 18th, the enthusiasm of the crowd that's encircling you, what was that like?
Well, I was fortunate because I had a 5-shot lead, so I could absorb it all, and you still have to get the ball in the hole, and you still have to concentrate on making sure your scorecard is signed correctly, and then you can let it go. But quite honestly, that was one of the unique experiences of the British Open, where the people would come in around you and feel the experience of what you were feeling, and seeing the big bleachers up there. And I loved it. I loved every step, even though you got whacked in the back a few times, and you had to really stay focused, but embrace the moment. That time I'd worked extremely hard for 71 holes of golf and got myself in a position to win, so I enjoyed it, I embraced it, and I was the type of player anyway who wore my heart on my sleeve. And
right.
I wanted people to see how much I enjoyed it, and I wanted them to see how much, if I failed, how much I hated it. So I was probably the last of those guys to do that.
You won 2 majors. I think you had the lead in a dozen others going into the last day. And I thought it was interesting. I read a quote you gave somewhere where you said you believe you would have won more if you weren't so stubborn. The 1996 Masters, you have a 6-shot lead going into the final day. it was a foregone conclusion in everybody's mind that you were going to win the night before. So that, Saturday night, you're in the locker room. What are you thinking about?
Oh, I was thinking about just getting home and getting something to eat and go to bed, quite honestly. It was late, and the press conference went long, and I still had to do some practice. And I was walking out of the locker room, and Peter De Bruyne, a British writer, was sitting at the bar on the way out, standing on the corner of the bar, and he says to me, "Not even you can screw this up tomorrow." That was not "Goodbye, Greg, good luck tomorrow." He says that comment. I go, oh, okay, why would you even say that, But anyway, you try and block it out as much as you can, but at the moment your mind was fatigued because of the day, and I'm not saying that was the reason what happened, but it's amazing when you look back and you see all the little things that happened from that night to the next morning. Waking up, my back was really bad. Maybe I shouldn't hit balls that night before the next day as much as I did. But I was really stiff. I got up and I was walking around the community where I rented a house, and I couldn't loosen my back up. And so now I don't tee off until 2:30 or something like that in the afternoon. I've got basically 8 hours to kill. And so I was a bit worried about that. So anyway, it's all part of it. You have to make that adjustment.
As the lead's going away on that final day, and ultimately Nick Faldo ends up winning, what are you thinking about?
Look, I never gave up right to the 15th hole. When that chip shot in 15th for Eagle didn't go in, that was a tough one, because I was still believing that I could, and it was that position where if I made 3 and Nick made 5, it was a totally different ball game. But at the end of the day, you're fighting with every bit of intensity you've got in you. You're fighting for it. You're fighting for you. You don't dare admit that things are slipping away to yourself. You keep grinding. You keep focusing. You keep doing stupid little things yourself. I used to stick my thumb up underneath my rib cage here and just give myself so much pain to focus on the moment instead of not thinking all this other stuff.
And that helped?
Oh, I used to do that all the time. Little things like that would trigger you to think about stay in the present and forget all the crap that's going through your head. And
you're flushing the toilet mechanism?
Flushing the toilet mechanism, yeah. I used to do that a lot. But you're just fighting for it. Just fight, because if winners never quit and quitters never win, right? So that was one of the great sayings that I always said to myself walking down a fairway.
You've said losing had, those 96 Masters had more of a positive impact on you than winning could have ever had. In what way?
Well, first of all, people totally respected the way I dealt with the failure. And when you're expected to do certain things and execute in a certain way, and when you don't, and how you handle that, failure is, to me, the most important thing outside of winning. Because what you do is you actually instill a value to every mom and father out there. Because the number of people, I still have boxes and boxes of fan mails that people wrote me in my house. But I went to Benjamin School the next day, and one of my kids was playing soccer. And another parent came up to me and said, "I want to tell you, you taught me the greatest lesson in life about how you handle that. Now how I can teach my son and how I should conduct myself going forward." And you sit back and go, wow, that's pretty powerful that I've affected another human being as powerfully as that. But when I started receiving all the letters, it resonated through 80-90% of the letters that the impact of how I conducted myself sent a huge message to many, 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 many parents. So I said, okay, you did win. You won in life. You didn't win the tournament, which I was selfishly so passionate about wanting to win. But at the end of the day, I actually won in life. And the people had more respect for me, and the consumers who were going to buy my products looked up to me and say, you know what, this guy's a pretty classy guy. You know, he took it on the chin. I could have not gone into that press conference and walked away in the locker room and said, forget everybody, I'm going to go home and cry. No, I got to take it on the chin. That's the responsibility you put yourself in if you want to be in the arena. If you want to go out there, you've got to accept the accolades just as much as accept the, you know, the punch in the stomach or the face or whatever it is that you self-inflict. So you got to step up to it. You got to be man enough to do it. And if you don't, shame on you. And I can name quite a few professional golfers today who've run away from that responsibility, which really, really pisses me off, because their responsibility is to the game and is to that tournament. And we're just a pass-through entity. There it is again. We're just a pass-through entity. And yes, you're good enough to put yourself in a position to do it, but when you pass through, you better leave back behind you some legacies and some pretty powerful stuff for the next generation to be able to say, okay, he did a really good job of playing the game of golf, but he or she did a really good job of instilling certain values for all of us to study.
And in the remaining moments I have with you, I want to ask you a little bit about golf today, and then the presidents. The first being, what do you think of the state of the game today?
Look, I think I made a very open statement in the last year. I've never seen the game of golf so healthy on a global front as where it is today. I love it that there are a lot of great players have a chance to win any golf tournament. Major championships or PGA Tour events or anywhere you play, there seems to be, like it was in the 80s when I had the Ballesteroses, myself, the Faldos, the Prices of the world, the Couples of the world, Jose Maria Lathabelle, Ian Woosnam, Sandy Lyle, to some degree Issei Aoki, Jumbo Ozaki. I mean, we had 10 or 12 players, and I've probably missed out on 5, and I apologize for that, but we had 10 or 12 players, no matter where we went in the world to play, we were always going to be up against 5 or 6 of those 10 or 12. So it wasn't like a fait accompli, like you're going to play in some tournament down in Australia, and because you're number 1 in the world and the next one is number 30, they're automatically going to win. No. So for a group of us, we all pushed each other to the limit. Every week, no matter where we were, we knew we were up against 3 or 4 other guys that could just take you to lunch and just spit you out, right? So you always had to be on your game. You always had to focus. You always had to be ready for it, because I loved that, going there. Now the game of golf is about where it was in the 80s. So no matter where you are in the United States, you're going to go up against the Rory McIlroys, the Henrik Stensons, and the Tiger Woodses of the world, and the Jordan Spieths of the world, and you can go down the list. The Patrick Reed. All of a sudden this base is spreading out, and that's why I think golf is so healthy. And it's going to be great for television. It's going to be great for corporate, and it's going to be great for growing the game of golf.
What was it like for you to watch Adam Scott, your fellow Australian, win the Masters to become the first Australian ever to do so, and then to thank you the day he won it?
Well, I think that was the second time I ever actually had a tear in my eye because of the game of golf. I was so happy for him. Yeah, absolutely. I was so happy for him because, I know what it's like to carry that banner of responsibility for your nation. Charlie Earp, my greatest mentor, really, said to me, Greg, when you go out and play, you represent 2 things. You represent the game of golf and your country. So when you go play, and everybody was saying, how come an Australian has never won the Masters in all these decades since the tournament's been in inception? And you go, wow, how come that is not to be? And I came close enough times, right? And everybody says, well, how come the Australians can't win it, right? And then when an Australian does win it, you go, yes, we've checked that box, because we should have won it. Before me, it should have happened. So, and then it happens to a great mate of mine who, fortunately for me, came up through my foundation, and all of a sudden you go, whoa, that's even more of a cooler story. And that's why, I shed a tear for him, because A, for my country, and B, for Adam, and C, for the game of golf. And, and the rest is history.
Rory McIlroy, what do you think of him?
Look, I love his attitude. I love that he says something and realizes he made a mistake in saying it, or the wrong inflection, and he'll come out and apologize. He's a human being, and I love it. I love that, where, instead of having your guard up all the time and just not answering the question the right way, and just say the way it is. He shows it with his play. He has no fear. He's going to step up to the plate. He makes mistakes. He can call top a 3-wood. He can take a 7. But at the end of the day, he walks off with that beautiful Irish smile and does the interview and doesn't blame anybody, except he may just had a bad day. And I love that attitude he has.
What do you think of Tiger as a player, and then personally?
Personally, I don't know him. Even though we live half a mile from each other, I wouldn't have said one word to Tiger Woods in 10 years.
Which is unusual, because when you moved to...
President's Cup at Royal Melbourne,
yeah.
We probably said 4 words and that's it. Which is kind of strange,
Because when you moved to the area, Jack Nicklaus
Yeah.
was here, you reached out.
Yeah, to me it was my responsibility. If I'm going into a person's backyard that is a figurehead of the game of golf, I'm going to go knock on his door and say, "Hey, Jack, I'm here. Can you give me some advice on how I can boom, boom, boom?" And Jack opened his arms up to me. Jack embraced me. Jack helped me big time and took a lot of pressure off him. He welcomed me to the area, and I went on to, winning major championships. And I complimented Jack for it, because that's what it's all about. That's what camaraderie and sportsmanship and team spirit's all about. And look, I'm not looking for it, number one, but, kind of surprised myself that, as close as we live, that, and I don't have anything against Tiger Woods.
There is a perceived rift between the two of you. Do you know what the kind of genesis of that is?
I think that's just the media making it up. Look, at the end of the day, like I said, I haven't had a conversation with Tiger Woods for anybody to predetermine there is a barrier there. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to, happy to, but if that's his choice.
Right.
People have their choice in life. That's it. It's not going to take any skin off of my nose. I'm just going to keep doing my life and enjoying Jupiter Island that I've been here since 1991.
How many presidents have you golfed with? Three. Both Bushes and Clinton. You tell about when the White House called when President Clinton was in office.
Yes, that was his first term in office, and the president was going to go down to Australia to have his first presidential visit there. And it just happened to be the week of the Australian Open. I get a call from the White House saying, President Clinton's going to be in Australia and he would really love to have a game of golf with you. And I go, well, it's a week of the Australian Open. I don't know whether I can. So, hang up the phone. I said I'd get back to you. I just didn't hang up the phone. And so the first person I called was President Bush 41. I said, Mr. President, I just had a call from the White House, and I really don't agree with, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and I don't agree with some of the decisions and where President Clinton is taking the country, and he's asked me to play golf with him, and I really don't want to play with him. And President Bush says to me, Greg, he said, just respect the position of the President of the United States. You play golf with President Clinton. I said, yes, sir. That's exactly what I said. I said, yes, sir. And then I called back the White House the next day, and I said, okay, here's the situation. President Clinton is going to be there on a Thursday. I normally play in the Australian Open because of my tee times were scheduled around getting the most people to the golf course. I normally played early on Thursday and late on Friday because people get off work Friday and they want to come and watch the last 2 hours of golf. So I said I can play with him Thursday afternoon. I normally would get done off the golf course around 2 o'clock. I can play with him around 3. And they said, great, he'll love to do that. Where? I said, okay, New South Wales Golf Club, which is our Pebble Beach of Australia. So boom, it all happened, right? I play golf, go out to New South Wales and meet him. He's on the tee waiting. And we take off. The whole golf course is closed down except for the Secret Service and the CAT team are out there. And I've got my caddy, Tony Navarro, with me, and we just take off. And we're playing golf, shooting the breeze, you know, just like you would any other thing. And Air Force One sitting there, and Hillary Clinton sitting on the plane waiting. And I only thought we were only going to play about 6 or 8 holes. Well, lo and behold, we make the turn, and he wants to keep going. And Air Force One is still sitting there, and Hillary's ready to go, and we just keep going. And we get around to the 16th hole. It's getting dark now, right? And we just I'm having one of the funnest days I've ever had on the golf course, because now it's not the President of the United States. Now it's just Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. And so we walk off the 16th tee, and he says to me, show me all your stretching exercises you do. So we lay down in the middle of the 16th fairway, and we're doing all these we're on the grass, and we're stretching and doing rotations and all that stuff. And I looked at my caddy, and I said, can you believe, Tony Navarro, I said, can you believe we're doing this right now with the President of the United States? He goes, I won't say what he said, but anyway, we chuckled away, and we finished, and I said to him, I was open to him, I said, Mr. President, I got to tell you one thing. I said, you have changed my attitude and philosophy about how I approach people from now on. And I was open and honest with him. I said, I had prejudged you. I said, I had prejudged you on your political viewpoints and not you as a person. And I said, it taught me a huge lesson. Never prejudge anybody on anybody else's opinion. And we've stayed best friends ever since. I mean, where we pick up the phone and just say, hey, how you doing, what's going on? Or he might hear I'm over in the Middle East doing something, he'll call me up and say, hey, I know who that blah, blah, blah. And it's just an incredible relationship. I'm still a Republican. He knows it and knows I'm that way. And I give him a little bit of stick too now. And I said to him, you know, as well as I do, your wife would have made a better president than the existing one right now, you know. And you know, he can't say anything, but I can. And, so it's interesting how, and if I had made the decision on a bad judgment, shame on me. And I have never to this day prejudged anybody. And that's why I don't prejudge Tiger Woods, because I don't know the guy, you know, and that's his choice in life. I can only go on what I see, and that's his golf game. And I'll make a comment on his golf game and how his swing looks. I'm just as much as a professional at the game as what he is, and if I am asked a question, I will give an honest answer. That's no slight on him. That's just a comment that I see on his game of golf. So, you know, I don't prejudge anybody.
What were you thinking when he was famously taken away from your house in an ambulance? The sitting president.
Yeah, it was just a shock, really, quite honestly. Expect the unexpected is probably but I've developed a lot of great friendships from that moment in time, from the head of the counter assault team, you know, 2 individuals that, you know, it's amazing what 2 seconds will do to a person's life. You know, when he got his heel caught and fell down the stairs, and I mean, I've had 3 knee surgeries because he landed on my knee. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, well, I had to catch him. So, and you know, so he fell on my knee, and my knee had buckled under, and I couldn't move because we didn't know what was wrong with him, and so his entire weight was on my knee, and it just, but took one for the team.
And you didn't want to move because
well, I couldn't. I couldn't, you
it.
know, and yeah, he's down, he can't move, he's hurt, you know, he's in a lot of pain, and now all of a sudden, in a matter of seconds, we're surrounded by the team, and the doctor comes running down and trying to make a quick assessment of what was going on.
You've obviously have and continue to have a fascinating life and have a lot of great stories. It's really been a treat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Yeah, appreciate it.